Hello, good morning, and welcome to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius, and thank you for joining me on the program for today, Thursday, April 10th, 2025. This conversation is also being carried live via our social media platforms. Check us out on our YouTube channel at ZIZ Online and via Facebook at ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation. When we open the phone lines, you may call us at 662-8674. That is 662-8674. Call and lend your voice to the conversation at hand. I have an important notice from the Integrity Commission here in St. Kitts and Nevis, or the Office of the Integrity Commission. All individuals required to file under the IPL Act are reminded to ensure that their completed declarations are submitted to the Integrity Commission by the stated deadline. Timely compliance is essential, and the deadline is April 30th, 2025. So integrity in public life IPL declarations are due by April 30th, 2025. For more information, please contact the Integrity Commission Office or visit their website at www.iplskn.com. Again, those who are supposed to file their declarations, you have until April 30th, 2025 to make your declarations, and it says here that timely compliance is essential. If you're not certain, you may contact the office via their email at admin@iplskn.org. That's admin@iplskn.org. Or you may call them at 466-6436. That's 466-6436 or 466-6915. 466-6915. Let's take this short break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation here on The Edge.
Whether it's a dress store on 4th Street, a snacket in Kayon, or a village grocery in St. Paul's, our small businesses play an important role in our economy. By supporting these businesses, you are helping to create or keep a job or two and to revive our economy. Support our local small businesses. Buy local and keep the doors to our small businesses open. This message is brought to you by ZIZ in support of our small businesses across the Federation.
The views and opinions expressed by participants and callers during this program are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation, its management, or sponsors. The station accepts no responsibility for statements made. Hello and welcome back to The Edge in ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm Devonne Cornelius, and thank you for joining me on the program for today. So again, just a reminder to public officials to make your declarations by April 30th, 2025. And for those of you who may be wondering who the public officials are, it refers to representatives in the National Assembly, senators in the National Assembly, Speaker in the National Assembly, Deputy Speaker in the National Assembly, representatives in the Nevis Island Assembly, as well as senators in the Nevis Island Assembly and the President. It also includes members of the Constituency Boundaries Commission, the Supervisor of Elections, Electoral Commissioners, the Clerk of the National Assembly. It includes the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, members in the Cabinet, ministers in the Cabinet rather, ministers in the Nevis Island Assembly or the Nevis Island Administration, parliamentary secretaries, Attorney General, Solicitor General, senior legal officer in the Attorney General's chambers, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, and these are just the positions. All of them are not filled positions. The Director of Audit, the Public Service Commissioners, members of the Public Service Board of Appeal, Public Service Commissioners, magistrates, registrars of the High Court, deputy registrars of the High Court, registrars of land, as well as its deputy, head of the Civil Service, chief personnel officer of the Civil Service, the financial secretary, permanent secretaries of the Civil Service in the government of St. Kitts and Nevis and the Nevis Island Administration, the Ombudsman, Information Commissioner, assistant secretaries at or above the level of grade K, 40, the controller of the Inland Revenue, head of the Central Purchasing Unit, the Commissioner of Police, Deputy Commissioner of Police, and the Assistant Commissioners of Police, Director of Public Works, head of the CIU, that is the Citizenship by Investment Unit, Accountant General, Comptroller of Customs, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, Chairpersons, Deputy Chairpersons, Managing Directors, Chief Executive Officers, and General Managers of corporations established by an Act of Parliament for a public purpose or as a subsidiary company of that corporation registered under the Companies Act. And these corporations include the Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Social Security Board, the St. Kitts Investment Promotion Agency, Financial Services Regulatory Commission, Medical Cannabis Authority, National Disaster Management Agency, the National Housing Corporation, the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, Whitegate Development Corporation, Frigate Bay Development Corporation, St. Christopher Air and Seaports Authority, as well as the Tourism Authority, the St. Kitts and Nevis Solid Waste Management Corporation, the National Handicraft and Cottage Industries Development Board, the Agricultural Land Development Authority, National Carnival Committee, St. Christopher National Trust, Nevis Solid Waste Management Authority, Nevis Air and Seaports Authority, the Nevis Cultural Development Foundation, Nevis Electricity Company Limited, Nevis Tourism Authority, as well as the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation. It also refers to a bank or corporation owned by the government of St. Christopher and Nevis, or in which the government of St. Christopher and Nevis has a controlling interest, including, but not limited to, the St. Kitts Nevis Angola National Bank Limited, ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation, Urban Development Corporation, St. Kitts Electricity Company Limited, St. Kitts Nevis Cable Communications Limited, and La Valley Greens Limited. All of these individuals. So if you are a chairperson, a deputy chairperson, a managing director, chief executive officer, or general manager of any one of those institutions that I have named, you are required to file your declarations with the Integrity in Public Life Commission by April 30th, 2025. And failure to do so, you know what's going to happen. I don't have to explain to you. It's 11:15, and you are listening to The Edge on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. Before we open the phone lines at 662-8674, I want to share with you some updates from the Ministry of Agriculture. So, in a continued effort to strengthen the local agriculture sector and boost pineapple production, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, through the Department of Agriculture, successfully hosted a hands-on pineapple training session at the Tabernacle Outreach Center on Wednesday, April 2nd. The session forms part of the government's broader initiative to support farmers through technical assistance with a focus on increasing productivity and crop quality across the island. The training targeted farmers who previously received pineapple suckers from the department. These participants were guided through key cultivation techniques to ensure successful pineapple growth and maintenance, with live demonstrations conducted by the Agriculture Extension Officer for District 3 and facilitator of the pineapple training session, Dion Weeks. While speaking with the farmers, he emphasized the importance of keeping the pineapples clean and ensuring proper spacing, usually 12 inches by 12 inches or 12 by 12, using a 3-foot span between rows. These practices help farmers manage production and improve crop quality, he said. Now, beyond the technical tips, Weeks stressed the importance of monitoring for pests and diseases. He said that pineapples may look rough, but they're highly susceptible to pests like spiders, mice, ants, and fungi. It's also important to monitor rainfall, as pineapples are prone to rotting when exposed to too much water. We'll take this break, and when we come back, we'll open the phone lines and begin taking your calls here on The Edge. Stay with us.
Astafan's Cloth Store on the corner of Church Street and Liverpool Road is holding a massive sale. Get 40% off all material while stocks last. Astafan's Cloth Store since 1942, always there for you.
In the sun or in the rain, life's a journey, joy and pain, but NCI's here day and night, always here for you, making it right. Always here for you. Always. With NCI you've got a friend, always here for you. Always. Right here till the very
At National Caribbean Insurance, you are covered and secure. We're your partner, your protector, your peace of mind. So for home, for health, for life, choose NCI because we are always here for you. Always.
Always here for you. Always. With NCI, you've got a friend. Always here for you. Always. Right here till the very end. Always here for you. Always. With NCI, you've got a friend. Always here for you. Always. Right here till the very end.
Hello and welcome back to The Edge on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. Thank you so much for joining me in the program for today. The phone lines are open and we're welcoming your calls at 662-8674. That is 662-8674. Call us and lend your voice to the conversation at hand for today on matters of national importance. Public officials are required to make their declarations by April 30th, 2025. And I have listed the officials who are required to make their declarations. Essentially, if you are in charge of some sort of public entity, or you have some sort of high responsibility or major responsibility, in any public facility or entity, you are required to file your declarations with the Integrity in Public Life Commission. Last year, there were a number of people who did not file on time. And we don't know if it's because of they did not know, or they were just not interested in filing. But there were quite a few people who did not file on time. And we, of course, saw the response or the actions taken by the Director of Public Prosecutions, who is also required to file, by the way. But we saw the actions taken by the Director of Public Prosecutions, and you wouldn't want it to be a repeat of what transpired last year. You know the deadline, you know the position that you hold, and so you are required to make your filings with the Integrity Commission and comply with the law. Again, that is April 30th, 2025. And the Ministry of Agriculture supporting our local farmers as St. Kitts and Nevis continues to work towards reducing our food import bill. Yes, we are in 2025, and unfortunately we have not reduced our food import bill by 25%. However, it does not mean that we should give up and not continue to work towards reducing our food import bill, especially with the trade war, which I think has been scaled back. The latest report that I read from the BBC was that Donald Trump is pulling back with the trade war. And so, except for China, he's still very stern with China. But as for countries in the region, and for countries that did not retaliate, he's saying, okay, because you guys did not retaliate, I'm going to be lenient and I'm going to put a pause on the tariffs that have been implemented. So, and when I saw that report, right, from the BBC, I chuckled a bit, because I remember when it came out that Donald Trump would be imposing these tariffs on small island states and other countries across the world, there were many calls for people to say, let's fire back, let's hit back, and it's not a case of you being afraid of the United States, but there must be diplomacy in situations like these. The reality is, we cannot go up against America. And it's not as if you're throwing your hands in the air, but we do not have the resources. Countries in the region, known as small island developing states, we're still developing. We cannot go up against countries like the United States, the UK, and Canada when it comes to trade, when it comes to things that we absolutely need here. As it is now, the region is struggling to grow its own food. Mm-hmm. We are struggling to grow our own food. What makes you think we can make vehicles, or we can make appliances to build our homes, or we can make materials to keep our schools running, or we can make the everyday essential items that we need to run the country, to run a household? We can't. And so retaliating and not taking the path of quiet diplomacy would not have been the best option.
Back to basics.
We back to basics. That wouldn't have been the best option. And so what I saw in the recent report is Trump has, for lack of a better term, backed down with the tariff chaos. I call it a chaos because when you really look at it, the increase in tariffs, they're going to affect ordinary citizens like you and I, in terms of the cost of living. The cost of living, as it is right now, is already high. And so imagine the tariffs being increased on these items. So the things that we order on a regular basis from the United States and other parts of the world, if you're accustomed to paying $10, you may be paying $40 in some cases. Something as simple as phones. I'm reading a report, I believe it was from the Times, the New York Times, on how tariffs, I think, on China or one of those countries, how it will increase the price of iPhones in particular. iPhones already are costly. So imagine the increase that it may see from these tariffs. So it may seem like it is not something for us to concern ourselves about or for us to learn more about, because that's America, that's China, ain't got nothing to do with us. It has a lot to do with us. Not only are we physically in the middle, America up there in the north. So not only are we geographically and physically in the middle, but in terms of trade and commerce and all of these different things, we're right there, dead center. We, St. Kitts and Nevis and the Caribbean region. When the Prime Minister was speaking at his roundtable discussion recently, he made mention of an import bill of about $754 million for St. Kitts and Nevis alone. And this is for the year 2024. And that $754 million, while we did not get the specifics in terms of which sector, it is the overall bill for St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of what every single person. So last year, if you bought a phone from Amazon, or if you bought a shirt from Shein or Fashion Nova, that is included in that $754 million. Because the $10 or the $25, though small, you paid, that is now circulating in the American economy. And the taxes that you paid on that, some of it, of course, stayed here in St. Kitts and Nevis. But majority of what you spend ordering online, that money is circulating in the U.S. economy. And so that is why you have such a high bill, $754 million. And then in the region, I think he said, is about $50 billion. So you find in the Caribbean, yes, we can do better, and efforts have been made to do better. But we are overly dependent on the United States and other parts of the world. We are overly dependent. And so if the American economy crashes, we are going to feel it. We are going to feel it. And no Caribbean government would be able to withstand or come up with policies that would buffer or provide like a barrier against against the possible fallout that we may experience. So it's something for us to take into consideration. We have a caller? Okay. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Hello?
Yes, caller, good morning.
Yes, and good morning to you listeners from on the broadcast going here. So this discussion here, we've been having it a very, very long time. And we in the Caribbean, we are failing ourselves. And we who causing our import bill to go in the millions and possibly in the billions when you put all the countries together. Now here is it. You have CARICOM, you have OECD, and you have all these other OAS, and you have all these other groups that you go to meetings annually. And here the thing, if we in the Caribbean were working and were serious about agriculture, each country planting an amount of things or producing amount of agricultural goods. We make a lot of agricultural equipment in the Caribbean. Why we are not buying from one another? Why we are not out there as a block trading with all those other nations, the whole entire Caribbean? Why you have OECD and CARICOM for?
You know what?
Come on.
if I could engage you a bit, you know what my theory is, and I may be wrong, but this is what I feel in terms of why we're not buying from each other. And I'll say it, we grudge.
Yes.
We very, very grudge. We in the Caribbean, we like to say we are one people and we're one Caribbean and we love our Caribbean brothers and sisters. But we're very grudging.
And I tell them that all the time, all these years on these talk shows, I tell them, please stop talk, but we must come together as one, because it is not going to happen. It will never happen in our lifetime, nor in the other lifetime if there's another one. Because here it is. Every number of elections, we change leaders, or we change government and leadership. And every leadership coming with its own terms and conditions. I remember hearing me and Martin say one time that Barbados is not the ATM for the Caribbean. I mean, then why are you going to OECS meeting? Why are you going to OAS? Why are we talking about we trading with one another, we learn free movement? Why are we talking those nonsense? Why we want free movement between us, and then you're going to get up here and say you all are not the ATM for the Caribbean?
But why don't we want free movement? Why are we so against free movement? We are the same ones saying that we are too dependent on America and the other parts of the world. Our food import bill is too high, but we don't want free movement where our Caribbean brothers and sisters can move throughout the region and make investments. So you see how you have the United States of America?
Yeah.
Why we can't have the United States of the Caribbean?
We tired talk about this year after year on these talk shows. Why we are not a trading block out here? Why we tell from an OECS and OAS and them there? Don't have us out there as the Caribbean community trading block against all those big nations. Let me tell you, in the Caribbean, we have a lot of things where those nations out there want to trade with, I mean, when you talk, we got oil, we got gold, we got silver, we got copper, we got all kind of food stuff grown in the Caribbean, produce and grown in the Caribbean. We are making rice. We have good things to trade with them to be out here amongst them. They have oil, they have gold, they have silver and copper. So why we are not out here trading with them and as one Caribbean block out here? And then we're talking about we're too heavily dependent. We're too heavily dependent because we are not working together as a block. But yet we waste the taxpayers' money year after year, month after month. Oh, we're going to OECS heads of meetings. We're going to carry some heads of meetings. Or carry some have our emergency meetings. And yet you can find 20 countries in the Caribbean that farm a block.
All right, Carl. Thank you.
It's rather interesting.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your contribution to the program. When we talk about trade in the Caribbean, the conversation often circles back to dependence, whether it be on tourism, on foreign imports, and even on each other. But a deeper question is, why is the Caribbean so reliant on intra-regional trade? Or why is the Caribbean so reliant on those larger countries? And what does that mean for our long-term development? So for starters, many of our countries are small island developing states, as I mentioned earlier, with limited natural resources and production capacity. We simply do not have the means to produce what the other countries are producing in terms of the manpower. That's the human resource, the skills and expertise, because we also have the issue of brain drain, where our people, they are going off and getting trained and all of that, but they're not coming back. They're not coming back. And so you may find a case where we have people from the Caribbean who know how to make planes, how to make cars, how to make phones, but they're not coming back. And it's not because, in some cases, it's not because they don't want to come back. It's because of the skill that they have acquired. The market is not, they don't have enough confidence in the economy or in the market for them to come back to apply that skill or to apply that trade. Because the reality is, nobody wants to be the first. Nobody wants to be the guinea pig. So we don't produce everything we consume, and we're too small to take advantage of the economies of scale that larger nations enjoy. So naturally, we look to our neighbors, we look to our friends. A container from Trinidad might bring drinks, while one from St. Vincent might bring produce, or Dominica. It's a give and take economy, but one shaped more by necessity than by strategy. So you have CARICOM, which people often criticize. Some praise, some criticize. And CARICOM was formed in part to strengthen this dynamic in terms of trade and strengthening the relations between Caribbean islands. And it wasn't just about cultural unity, it was about economic survival. How do we survive as a region? So by reducing trade barriers and encouraging the movement of goods, services, and people, the idea was to create a single economic space. One economic space. And in some ways, it works. So countries like Barbados, St. Lucia, and Jamaica all benefit from exporting to each other more easily than they do to markets outside the region. But here's where it gets tricky. When global supply chains tighten, as we saw during the pandemic, you would recall during the pandemic we had some empty shelves. I remember people was helter-skelter to buy toilet paper. So the supply chain it tightens and the price increases dramatically at the stores. The items that you see on the shelves at Best Buy and Rams and Value Mart, they are 99.99% of them are not made here. And so the price increases in Canada. In Canada, it's $20. So you have to pay for that $20 and pay enough money so that that store could remain open and pay the employees. Let's go back to the phone lines. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hi, good. I don't know if you have a special topic this morning, do you?
Sorry? Yes.
I don't know if you have a special topic this morning, do you?
We don't. But so far we've been talking about the tariffs war or the chaos going on from the United States and how it affects us here in the region in terms of the cost of living.
Well, I mean, I like to comment on that too, because based on what is happening in America now and our COVID experience, we should have been further in terms of food security. And I want you to look at something in one of your topics one of these days. The reckless behavior on our roads in the context of we trying to develop a tourism industry. I think maybe you need to have a look at that one of these days for me. And one last thing. I'm still asking the relevant authorities in Stoneford to show the videos of the plant root damage in the building, because what they're saying is totally contradictory to botany and plant growth. They went and chopped down the tree, had no consultation with the villagers, as if we don't matter. And I think that was very unfortunate and disrespectful. I'm going to give you a story about the other end of Challenges when they were fixing the road. There's a mango tree over there over 100 years old. The road was rooted around the mango tree, and the mango tree is still there today giving us mangoes to eat. So if that tree down the road was breaking down the building, kindly show the public the video so we can be satisfied and have a better understanding of what is happening. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, caller, thank you for your contribution to the program. It's 11:40, and we're taking your calls here on The Edge at 662-8674. That is 662-8674. If you have no calls, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation here on The Edge. Stay with us.
As we celebrate the death and resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the Faith Tabernacle Church of God presents Jesus on Trial, a soul-stirring play to be held at the Kuna Conference Center in Fort Lands on Sunday, 13th April at 6 o'clock in the evening. Pick up your tickets today from any member of the church family or call 665-0546 or 664-8405. Adults, $20. Children 5 to 13 years, $10. Go and be blessed.
Highest is greater than the rain. No.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Good morning. Hello, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. Yeah, I would just as a part of a statement, I will say that some person go out there, they don't come back and nobody want to be first. But we got to look at a deeper thing than that, unless some person study the wrong thing. For example, a guy go outside there and study air mechanics, right? I mean, who is responsible to create that avenue for you to come back and apply the trade? Where are you going to build that and the garage to storage? All right? If you look around the airport, they are building up the directly on the airport, and I was saying for years that nothing on the car around the airport. Seeing the grill hang on the car there, the water department hang on the car there, some of the places built around the airport. There's no way if a plane comes and break down, we got to get somebody to hang up to pull anything off or thing like that. And study a person here outside there study air mechanics. But what they going to come back here to work where? It's not like a car you can put it across the road and what things to garage. These things need to be handled differently from a vehicle. So sometimes you got to check on some definite decision and say, well, nobody wants to be first. But it's not necessary because of that, you know. But anyway, guys, in trade, but we got to wait and consider that, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes we don't want to trade one another. Sometimes in sustainability. Me and your brothers, we could have a ground basically, and we could be trading one another. But we can't sustain about 10 years or 20 years or 40 or 50 years, okay, sorry. Sometimes we look at here, we argue about farmers, right? In garden, we end up getting 1 year. If I go to a department for 50 acres, 20 acres to do something, and they say, we're going to a monocrop and do that. Then tell me, no, you can't do that. Because the person wants to get like a 2 acres away from me, so that I have to be waiting on the crop rotation. I have to wait until this crop done and wait until a couple months. So you can't get all year long supply. Anyway, I won't take up much more time. But we got to look at a lot of these considerations. It's more politics than other things.
All right, caller. Thank you for your contribution on the conversation here. It's 11:41, and you're listening to The Edge on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. And I get the point that the caller, has made. There are a lot of reasons as to why, when we're talking about brain drain, as to why people, when they go off, they decide not to come back. Because, one would argue that the space has to be created. So somebody has to create the space. The government has to create the space for that area to thrive. And so if you have somebody who is versed or trained or has that experience in engineering, they have to, that environment or that environment has to be created for them to thrive. And when I made the statement, nobody wants to be first, it's a packed statement in the sense that it's not just being first for being first's sake, but being first because you don't have anything to rely on. You don't have any backup plan. You're just going out there with your idea and you're not sure if you're going to make it. Others would say, you get your training, your expertise, come back and open a business. That too is easier said than done. It is not to discourage people from opening a business, but it is easier said than done. And there are a number of things that you must consider, before venturing into that. We have a caller. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Devonne, and listeners. I don't think it's really accurate to say, to give the impression that we're not really doing anything in terms of integration. We are. We're just not doing enough. Okay, because there are institutions and so on, and there is cooperation that we see all the time. Okay, you can talk about institutions like the University of the West Indies, at the CARICOM, of course. At the CAFO, things like CAFO. At the sub-regional level, we have the Caribbean Supreme Court. We have East Caribbean Currency Bank, East Caribbean Central Bank. We have the East Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority. So we do cooperate. Okay, it's just not enough. We would have thought that since so many of the leaders have gone to the regional institutions like the University of the West Indies, that there would have been more camaraderie between them, and they would have been more enlightened. But unfortunately, they're just like the leaders of the past who essentially want their own turf, want to be to manage their own turf at the expense of regional unity. And we would have thought by now too that the economic imperatives might have promoted that kind of regionalism, since the political part of it didn't work. And it's not just the leaders who we should blame. The average man on the street is he's very insular. Okay? He's inward looking. He's not thinking of being part of no big regional experiment. He's just looking for his bread and butter here at home, right? And the politicians just follow suit. That's the difference between politicians and leaders. Leaders have vision and look long term at the best interests of the people, whereas politicians look at the next elections, winning the next elections, right? So. But the point is, we have made, I wouldn't even call them strides, but we've had made some steps towards it. It's going to be for the next generation, really, to advance it. Okay? And maybe the world circumstances might drive us into it. Okay? We might be kicking and screaming against it, but we may have no choice but to form larger units. Otherwise, you're not going to get any respect in the world. Right now, you see what's going on with the world order is changing. The small people don't get no respect. Small nations don't get no respect. Okay? It's all about the big boys, and we relegated to, I don't know what to even call us, right? But we still can do things internally to make sure that we keep above the water. There are things we can do, for instance, in our politics. If we get our politics right, we still haven't gotten our politics right. It's still very much about...
Are we going to get it right, though?
well, some visionary leader will come along and who will galvanize the people into a better way.
I think that's going to
hasn't happened so far, but
it's going to take
It's
going to take time.
Yeah, and maybe it might take generations, but like I said, when what's happening in the rest of the world, if we don't do it, if we don't get our act together, we are going to be left behind. Okay, so I'm still hoping that the leadership would come along that would provide that kind of impetus towards being better, creating our nice little space down here. Okay. That we can live in, and a lot of things too, a lot of times too, right? We have the first world taste. You talk about we just don't have economies of scale, we don't have the size and so on to make stuff to sell, to export and sell to other places. We don't. That's true, but that doesn't mean we can't have some measure of control over, for instance, our lifestyle, what we eat, the choices we make in products. Everything doesn't necessarily have to be about name brand and status symbols and so on, right? A Samsung phone might be just as good. Or
some people would challenge you on that.
Okay, all right, not just as good. No, okay, take it back. But certainly, I mean, most people don't use all the features in the iPhone, right?
They just use the iPhone to make a call and take pictures.
Exactly, right? And so, if we make choices like those, we wouldn't have to be bleeding, we wouldn't be hemorrhaging money all the time to support the metropolitan countries, right? Similarly, yes, we've talked agriculture to death. We're still nowhere near even anywhere close to self-sufficiency in terms of food. Again, it's going to take a crisis for that to happen, you know. How they say it? Force make water go uphill? Right, similar kind of thing. Or necessity is the mother of invention, put it that way. Okay? So that is what I think it would take. But, you know, we're okay now, I think, compared to a lot of places. But we're vulnerable. And we can just, we might be whatever it is in the Caribbean right now, but you can easily slip to the bottom if you don't get things done right. Okay? Yeah.
Carla, thank you so much for that, for your contribution. I think the answer lies in bold policies, targeted investment, youth engagement with the people, especially in agriculture, information technology, renewable energy, because the truth is, we have the brain power, and I believe we have the potential. What we need now is alignment, a regional alignment, a regional vision that looks past dependency and into full self-sufficiency. You know, it's not just words and saying these nice things, but it's actually doing it. It's actually doing it. A really good points made by the caller. But there's still a number of things for us to consider, a number of things for us to think about when we're talking about the development of the Caribbean region. You talked about agriculture and how we're nowhere close to self-sufficiency, and it is true. But we are trying, and you can see where the work is being put in. And I, for one, do not subscribe to surrendering. Okay, we're going to stop because we ain't getting nowhere. But I also believe that a lot of it has to do with our individual mindset. You could have a leader, you could have a certain group of people trying to steer us in a certain direction, but our mindset will not allow us to go in that direction. We don't want that. That's not good. We know nothing about that. And I believe that has been part of the reason why we are not further ahead in certain areas than we could have been. It's 11:56 and you have been listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. Until next time, you guys stay safe and continue to enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Don't drink and drive, don't text and drive, and please take it easy on the road. There's no way for you to rush and go. If you're late, you're done late. When you reach, say you're sorry. At least you the life you save may be yours, and you may save a life. So please, I'm begging you, take it easy. Coming up is our midday newscast. Stay tuned.